Hi, welcome to TOEFL Tuesdays. I'm Lucas from Magoosh. So today, this video isn't really for TOEFL students. If you are a student, I apologize. Next week we will be back to the normal TOEFL Tuesdays for students. But this week, it's for teachers. This week we're going to talk about how to teach the TOEFL. Specifically, if you are already a English as a second or other language teacher, or an English as a foreign language teacher, an English teacher, whatever. If you are an English teacher and you've already been teaching for some time and you're comfortable with doing that, but you find yourself with a TOEFL class and you need to learn the test and learn how to teach the test very quickly, well, you're actually in a position that I was in once upon a time, and something that I did work through, and nowadays I have some advice to give on it. It's tough when you first start teaching the test because you have to sort of balance the test versus just general English. And we, as teachers, already know how to teach the general English, for example, with conversation activities or with gap fill activities. That's fill in the blanks, things that are pretty standard in any English classroom. And a lot of that will filter into a TOEFL class. So if you already do that stuff, great, you're going to use that. You're going to use that a lot. But don't rely completely on that. That is probably the biggest mistake that I see in other TOEFL teachers, or that I hear about in other TOEFL teachers, is that they really just focus too much on general English. The other opposing mistake that I see is people focusing too much on just practicing the test. A good TOEFL classroom would have a mix of both, because both of those things help bring up TOEFL scores, and they help to do it in different ways. I'm going to actually talk about three basic ways to teach the TOEFL. The first two I basically just mentioned. The first one is teaching vocabulary and grammar, teaching the mechanics of English that you would in any other classroom. So that's like what gap fill exercises are for, right? That's also what vocabulary homework and vocabulary quizzes are for. You're going to use that, absolutely. Let's not talk too much about that, that's boring. Beyond that, teaching the test means teaching the format of the test and the best ways to answer questions. Luckily, pretty much any TOEFL book you buy, other than the official guide, don't buy the official guide for a classroom to use as your textbook, please. Any other TOEFL book that you buy for a classroom will give that kind of advice on how to best answer the questions. Say, for example, how to structure a speaking response, how much time to spend introducing the topic, how much time to spend giving details, what kind of vocabulary is helpful for which speaking task, etc. That's usually in the types of books that you would use in a classroom. So you can sort of rely on that for the advice on how to actually take the test. There's plenty of that on our website as well, at the Magoosh website and on our blog. All of that is all of learning the test is best done with a lot of actually with test practice that's similar to the real test. That is official tests, tests from the official guide and tests from the book of 5 official practice tests. That's all fantastic material for that. It's, as I said, the official guide doesn't have a lot of guidance as to actually how to take the test and the best ways to answer questions, but it has the best material to practice with, so you want to incorporate that as well. So, okay, you have the how to answer the questions and actually using official material to practice. Those are basically the parts of teaching the format of the test and how to answer questions. Now there's a third part. As I said, there are 3 ways. The first, just to recap, vocabulary, grammar, standard English. The second, the format of the test and how to answer questions. And the third one is TOEFL-specific skills, such as note-taking. This is something that maybe students don't do in their normal English classes, and is not like exactly how to answer the questions of the test. It's really a background skill. If you're good at taking notes, that really helps you for the TOEFL in particular, but it might not help you for normal daily English usage. There are other skills like this as well. It's not just note-taking, although that is by far the biggest, most important one. summarizing and connecting information from multiple sources and the language to do that with, outlining and organizing the things that you plan to speak about or write about, using a QWERTY keyboard even. If you are teaching in Europe and you have a quartz keyboard with the Z instead of the Y, then students switching to a QWERTY keyboard can really change things. That's a background skill. So those background skills should factor into your classroom as well. You want to mix all three of these to have the most effective classroom. And underlying all of that, during all three of those types of teaching, you want to focus on a couple of TOEFL-specific ways of thinking about English. The first is English in use. Keep in mind that the TOEFL does not have vocabulary quizzes or grammar quizzes. It's all in use. It's actually reading, actually listening, speaking, writing in a way that's as similar as possible to what you would do in an English classroom or a university setting. So you need to really focus on using English. Grammar drills, grammar exercises are good sometimes if a student, has not ever learned a structure before and they need to become familiar with that structure. But for a normal TOEFL classroom, you're going to want to not use those exercises so much and instead actually get students talking and get students reading and get students listening and interacting with the grammatical structures that they've learned in that real world type of setting, in that usage setting. That, again, applies to all three of the ways of teaching that I mentioned earlier, as does academic focus. What kind of vocabulary? What kind of grammar? Well, there is academic vocabulary and academic grammar. Those are the kinds of words and the kinds of structures, the kinds of things to teach that are most helpful for the TOEFL. There are, of course, some listenings, some recordings on the TOEFL that are relatively conversational and that aren't super academic. They don't use more academic vocabulary. They have phrasal verbs, etc., idiomatic slang English. But a lot of the test is very academic, so keeping that academic theme in the classroom helps to build that vocabulary and that grammar, etc. So this is all of this is just a framework for how to think about your TOEFL classroom. For more specific advice, I would have to go into a much longer video or even a series of videos. If you are very interested in that, please let us know, and in the future I can maybe give you some more videos on how to teach TOEFL English. Before I go, one last thing, book recommendation. I know on our blog we have book reviews for self-study, and there's one book that I haven't reviewed that is quite good for the classroom that I really recommend. That's Oxford Preparation. And the Oxford book is just, it has a lot of conversation activities, it has a lot of classroom activities, it has a lot of things that you can sort of reappropriate and use as you want in different settings, and it's just better designed for a classroom syllabus rather than a self-study type of program. So there's a book recommendation for you. Check out that book. And again, if you have any other questions, if you want to know more about teaching the TOEFL, then let us know, and maybe we'll have more videos just like this one.